Hey, what's up? What's up? So let's talk about it. Inside Job, the new Kenyan movie on Netflix. And wow, yeah, if I was to give this movie out of 5, I'm going to be very honest with you. I will give this a 2 out of 5. Is it a terrible film? No. This is a very interesting concept. They did some things that I actually enjoyed and they went like, yeah, we should be doing more of this. But yeah, they kind of dropped the ball. It's a very poorly written story, I'm sorry to say. It's a poor story, it's a good idea, but a very poorly written story. So let's just break it down, because obviously it cannot be, it was all bad, it was all terrible. There are things that worked about the film, there are a lot of things that did not work about the film. So let's begin with the actors, because this has 2 of the biggest female actors and comedians in Kenya. We have Jacky Vike, we have Eunice Mammito as Tracy, we have Wambui, who is played by Jacky Vike, we have Ravi, who is played by Elyas Moshkwani, we have Fiona, who is played by Shiksha Arora, we have Patricia, who is played by a seasoned actor, Irene Karaoke, we have Mr. Karai, who's played by Mihul Savani, we have Charles, who's the watchman, played by Dominic Mutemi Musyoka, we have Muli, played by Isaac Jemedari, we have Priyanka, played by Mary Ann Jawad, we have Miano, played by Ronnie Mugandi Karaoke, we have Brayo the Jabba guy, who's played by Kerian Rataya. It's executively produced, surprisingly enough, by Tosh Gitonga, produced by Barbara Maina, another producer is Kamau Wandugu, then you have the producer as Mahinda Joe. It's written by Angela Ruhinda, and the story was edited by Kamau Wandugu. Now, I have a big problem, number 1. Anyway, let's start with what I liked about this film, before we get to what I did not like. In terms of performances, this was a huge surprise, especially coming from Jacky Vike, because I thought she was awesome. She was really good in this. We don't get that over-the-top character that we're all used to. We get a much more toned down, introspective character. She feels like a person, not like a caricature. And why it works is because Mammito on the other side plays the comedic character and Vicky plays the straight character. And their dynamic is very interesting, especially as relatives. Yes, did I want to see more done with Mammito? Yes. But every time that they're together, you get 2 very interesting characters that you can follow. They are very entertaining to watch. They're very entertaining to watch when they when they interact together. Now, there are some classic moments, there are some moments that I loved with both of them. Number 1 was when Mammito was presenting the plan for whatever they were going to do, and then she kind of drifts into how she wants Mr. Karai to remember that he's not God. When she gets actually emotional and she starts behaving like a person who is overly emotional, I thought that was a very interesting scene in bringing out Mammito, a different side of Mammito in relation to this movie. And then there was, after they do the mission, there's a moment that they have with Jacky Vike in the house, and she removes the weave and they have a conversation and she goes to bed. I thought that was also interesting, because the character of Tracy here is basically Mammito. It's based on Mammito, and it's a good thing that they leaned towards her strength and tried to utilize it to help tell the story. But there are smaller moments like those that gave a different side of Mammito that I would have wanted to see more of. I was talking about Jacky Vike. Jacky Vike is pretty cool in this. She is, without a doubt, the best part about this movie, because we get a different side of what we'd expect from Vike, and she actually brought out that character very well. As I said before, she felt like a person. When Ravi is introduced and they meet, I thought their dynamic was also really good. They were like 2 people who low-key liked each other and did not understand what was happening. They were just falling in love. There's a Cinderella story. But we're going to get into that, because that's one of the problems that I have with this movie. Now, that interaction with Vike and Ravi I thought was pretty cool. And when Fiona is also thrown into the group, I thought there's just like a sweet feeling about their relationship, even if it just gets a little screen time. I thought it had a very interesting feeling to it. Now, I think I've jumped something that is in terms of the story. The story is very basic. It's Patricia, who is Wamboi's mother. She's fired by Mr. Karia because she's suspected of stealing some things, and so after she's fired, she's never given her pension. So Tracy and Wamboi, who is Mammito and Jacky Vike, now come up with a plan to actually, get what her mom deserves from Mr. Karai, because they pay him a visit, try to explain, but Mr. Karia does not understand. He just chases them off. And so now they hatch this plan that they should go there and actually, get what her mother, what Wamboi's mother deserves, what Patricia deserves. So they hatch this plan, but during the day of execution, they find that there's a party going on. And so they have to disguise themselves. So they disguise themselves wearing some awesome Indian outfits. They go into the house. They kind of go through a lot of things. And that's when Vike's character, Wambui, meets another character called Ravi, who is the son of Mr. Karia. And so something happens between the two of them, and that, I think, is the core of the story. So we get those two fall in love, and then Uko Mammito's character is trying to make, whatever they were meant to do happen. She gets caught by a guy called Molly. She kind of escapes, and then the relationship between Ravi and Wamboi keeps just going. There's a swimming pool scene where she falls in, and then she has to change her clothes, and then eventually they leave the building after so much circus going on through the day. And eventually Mr. Karai discovers that, oh no, it wasn't Patricia who was stealing this, it was someone in the vicinity else who was stealing this. And so Ravi and Fiona go to Patricia's home. They're like, oh, we discovered the thief. It was not you, so we've come to say sorry, and you're like, welcome back. And Patricia's like, oh, my children. Then she hugs them. And then now Ravi and Wambui finally get the keys, and then the movie ends. So as a concept, I thought it was very interesting. I thought it was interesting that we were given, a look into the Indian side of Kenya, because when you think Kenya, pop culture, we don't really drift into the Indian people. We usually just like to stay Kenya. We don't really have stories that pay a lot of attention to the Indian community. So I thought that was very interesting. I thought bringing the story to the Indian community was very interesting. I thought there was a very interesting Cinderella story. And the location for Mr. Karia was perfect, because it's opulence, and then for Patricia, it's Karioko, it's, people who are struggling, basically. So I thought that contrast just through the location was done very well. The set designs are pretty good. When the gold pops up, when excess is properly displayed, you get it. You understand that there was a lot of attention that was paid by, the prop people. The costume designers are also really cool. I thought when Tracy and Wamboi transformed into these Indians, into their Indian outfit, was pretty good. The makeup is decent, and you see Tracy's character evolve with time. Whenever she's doing something different, she looks different. When she's at home, she looks different. When they go for the party, she looks different. They do the same thing with Vike too. I also thought that there are some few things that they did with sound, though it's not perfect, it's far from perfect. There are just smaller things that they did with sound that I thought was okay. The picture is decent, it's fine. It's nothing special, it's fine, it's serviceable. Let me say, it's not something that you go like, oh my gosh, that looked so good, I want to watch it again. No, it's a comedy. The day scenes are bright, the night scenes are colorful because of the colored lighting, and it's just decent. Now, what did I not like about this movie? Number one, it's too many things. Oh my gosh, it's too many things. There is an Ocean 11 heist story there's a Cinderella story, and then there is what I like to call a Mammito's 75-minute TikTok video, because in a way this is Mammito's show. I'm sorry to say, this feels like they leaned so much into Mammito that they kind of forgot everything else, and that goes now into my problem with direction, because it doesn't feel like a movie that was directed. It feels like it was written. There was a lot of pre-production process, and then they just went and shot, because you don't feel that hand that is directing you towards a particular tone. I mean, if they wanted it to be a love story, they would have set up Ravi's character earlier on, before even the story began. They would have set up Ravi's character when the dad was introduced. They would have said like, oh, but my son is coming, and I don't know. They would have just done something different with Ravi, so that when he falls in love with Vicky's character, it's viable, it's believable. You go like, oh, this feels like a more natural way of people to fall in love. That's what I'm saying. The story does not feel like it's directed in terms of tone. There are just so many tones that are flying in their own direction, and you don't feel like there's someone who's handling the audience. There's no one directing the audience to one particular tone. So number one direction, that it fails the audience that way. Number two, that escalation. This follows a kind of 3-act structure. You kind of see it from a distance, whereby naturally a 3-act structure is supposed to start and then elevate, and then now you have the climax. Maybe somewhere in the middle you can plateau a bit, but then you need the climax to be boom, the big thing. But with this, the moment you're introduced to Mammito, it's a sudden spike, and then it plateaus. The tone kind of plateaus. You don't feel a moment of elevation. You don't feel like things have suddenly become tight. There is no tension, because you need to remember, as much as this is a comedy, it's a heist movie too, because they need to go steal something, and you don't feel tension in some scenes because Molly was poorly handled as a character. There are so many missed opportunities with Molly, with Priyanka, with Miano, because Priyanka could have been the villain that actually tied down Tracy. It would have been more interesting if Priyanka discovered Tracy, not Molly, because you've already established this side of Tracy, where this dynamic between Priyanka and Tracy, whereby they don't like each other. So it would have been more interesting if she discovered that Tracy was trying to steal something and tied her down. I thought it would have been more interesting that way, rather than Molly, because Molly just pops up. I think he exists in this space in order to be the person who stole. There's nothing to him. They don't do enough with the character to actually make him interesting. I thought even it would have been more interesting if, when, for example, Molly is being walked away, we later on discover that Charles was actually the thief. There are moments like that I feel that were kind of flat in terms of development. Charles, as a comedic relief, competes with Mammito, and I thought he just reminded me of Citizen TV. We don't always need to see the comedic watchman. We don't need to see that. He could have been just a straight character like Jacky Vike, a serious character who knows exactly what he's doing, and find a different way of bringing these characters in. For example, you establish that Wambui is a chef when the story is beginning, but you don't do anything with it within the movie. We only see that in the end. And I'm like, that was a great opportunity to actually use it to bring them into the party, but it's not utilized. Ravi as a character, as I said, was a bit wasted. I wish they would have given him more. I know there's a Cinderella story going on, but I wish they would have given him much more background to make him compelling, to make him feel like a person, not just like the cool kid who came from the UK and now he's just back, and that's all, and he has beef with his best friend. That was extremely weak. Why couldn't he be the guy who was forced to come back in order to take care of the family business, and he did not want to come back? He was having a great time. So he hates being here. He hates being in that party until he meets Jacky Vike's character. I thought that would have been an interesting dynamic. I thought that would totally flip, because the character that we meet before is the same character that we meet at the end. He has no arc. He does not grow. He's just flat. So I wish they would have done something different with that. Fiona, I also thought, was wasted, because I liked her dynamic with Ravi. And I thought she would have been made more sense if Ravi was built the way I've said, the guy who came back and did not want to come back. And then she has this sister who is trying to push her in. And I wish the whole family was given something, an anchor. Like, for example, there was a great idea about the mother passing away. I wish they would have been given that anchor as a family, the one thing that brings them together, the one thing that forces them to be here. which actually makes me think this would have worked as a mini series. Yeah, this should have not been just a 75-minute movie. I think this should have worked as a mini series so that you explore Patricia's family, akina Vike, akina Mammito. You explore them totally, then you explore this other family, Karia's family. You explore that totally, and then the last episode, the 3-part mini-series, you can have the last episode where now this heist happens. So that when everything is happening, we know these people. We know where they're coming from. We understand them. Yes, the motivation with Patricia's family, Akina Tracy and Wambui, it's very, very clear. You understand why they need to do this. You understand why they need to do whatever they are doing. But every other character, you don't understand what drives them. You don't understand what drives Priyanka. Miano, there's this beef between Miano and Ravi. An opportunity to explore that character and just open him up to more dynamic. You open him up. Can you imagine if Miano, Priyanka, and Molly came together to fight against Ravi and Wambui, and that to just try to break that relationship because they suspect these people, and they don't want anything good to happen between these two people. Maybe they could have come in and done something in order to try to stop that. I thought that was another missed opportunity. So yeah, the story is everywhere. The story is disjointed. The scripting is terrible. The dialogue outside Mammito has some very funny lines. When she's cooking, the first time she's walking into the hotel, that champagne discussion, very, very interesting. She has some very, very classic stand-up lines, very, very funny. But every other character is not given something because it's a comedy, but the comedy does not mean that it has to end with Mammito. All the other characters can actually be funny, apart from Vike and Ravi. Ravi can be funny. And even you can create a situation whereby Vike is a certain way when she's with the family. We know that Vike that has been established. But every time that she's with Ravi, she becomes a much happier person. She becomes a much more different character so that you sell the idea that she has fallen in love. Yeah, missed opportunities. And yeah, I thought, yeah, the story was everywhere. The scripting, the dialogue, terrible. Between the act, it's terrible. Who was writing this? Because it doesn't feel like, apart from Vike and Mammito, when they are talking, that feels more natural because obviously they're friends and they must have practiced those lines for years. They feel like people. But then everyone else, every other character, their dialogue is surface level, it's flat, it's what you'd expect to be written for those particular characters. They don't feel like natural people, especially Miano. You know, Miano is such a character, it's such a caricature that I thought the character was wasted, absolutely wasted. I thought they would have done more with that particular person. He's a great actor, Ronnie is a great actor. I wish they would have just done more with that, from a comedic angle, more with that character than just placing him there so that he can sleep with Priyanka and cause a lot of tension between him and Ravi. I thought he was I just thought he was wasted. Let me just put it that way. Then the editing doesn't help because the dialogue, which makes the story feel flat and plateau, is the dialogue, the way it's edited. There's that space, there's the kitchen scene, the space between the timing, the timing in the dialogue does not feel punchy. There's like a gap. When someone says something, there's like a gap before the other person responds. It's like there's a loading period before someone responds, and that makes it feel dull for most part. Because that kitchen scene could have been interesting if the dialogue was quick, punchy, and immediate. Like if Priyanka said something, Mammito's character would reply instantly without even looking at her. I thought they did that with that because we've already established that Mammito's character Wambui is a smart ass from the beginning. I wish her dialogue was much snappier, especially when they get into the house. Now, the other problem that I had with that particular kitchen scene, everything feels staged. It does not feel, it feels staged in that when you walk into a restaurant, a normal restaurant would look a certain way. There would be buzzing activities, people would be walking around, but in this, it's very strategic. You see a person there, you see another person here, then you look at the picture frame, and then you know, oh my gosh, yeah, that's staged. And then when you go into the kitchen, the people standing in the background, they're just standing there. You know, they're just standing there watching these two people. Maybe they'll pocket, maybe they'll do, but you just feel that awkward standing, watching feeling. Yeah, the blocking could have been better. Let me just put it that way. And then now, the music. Oh my goodness, those transition musics are terrible. Those whoosh, those wow sounds. Oh my gosh, they're terrible. That's from the 2000s, man. Why would you have it in a movie like this? That's what I'm saying. Direction. This doesn't feel like it was directed, because a director like Tosh wouldn't have those sound effects in this. They're terrible. They devalue what you're about to present, and it's like they're trying to emphasize, look, the story is moving. They're trying to sell that, but it's not presented within the story. Yeah, I thought that those were off. As I said, I kind of needed more environmental noise. Yeah, you get a bit of the cars coming in, the borders coming in, so you hear the sound first before you see the vehicle. That was pretty cool. But you don't get those environmental noise that you would expect in places like a restaurant, or just people having fun in a building. Like if they're in this room, how would music sound in a different room? You don't get to hear that. So the sound could have been better. Let me just put it that way. The last thing for me is just being petty. There's an Indian dance, very creative. I wish it was executed well. I know it was okay, and it was just that thing that throws you off into a Kenyan production. They were trying to do something different. I kind of enjoyed it, but why don't you own it? Why don't you take it and own it? Make a music video out of it. Go to the streets of Nairobi, like there's that song, there's an Indian song, one of my favorite Indian songs, it's here. If you watch that video, they kind of tell the story of it's from the movie Kalank. It's an Indian movie. They kind of tell the story about the love between these two characters within the song. So why not make a music video that tells the story between Ravi and Wambui? Full, complete, everything. You tell us all the story within the music video. You have Ravi perform, you have Vike perform and dance, you have them in the streets of Nairobi. You just make a good music video and then you throw it there in the middle, rather than having these few characters just dance. I wish they would have done that. I wish that would have been just, oh yeah, inside JOB is out and there's a video for that particular movie. There's this video from there. I wish that was there. So yeah, this was I don't want to call it a terrible movie. This was a letdown. It feels very flat, it feels very dull, and there's no proper sense of direction. I don't know if he was involved in the direction of this movie. Personally, I think he was. This is just taking a story and saying, point the camera and shoot. Are there creative shots? Yes, there are. There are very good establishing shots of Nairobi that distinguish between these people are rich, these people are poor. But we have too many establishing shots, and they do some really cool transition between night and day. That I cannot take away from the movie. But tonally, just in terms of direction, just in terms of saying, I'm watching this, but this story is taking me a particular direction, I don't feel that sense of direction in this. This just feels like everything is everywhere at all times. And now you're supposed to believe that final scene when these two characters are kissing. Actually, as I said, it feels like a TikTok video or TikTok clips. You know those movies or series that are on TikTok where it's just small event after small event after small event after small event, and if you put them together you get one big movie? That's how I felt about this. Yeah, there was nothing bold about what they were trying to do. The poster I love. I wish they would have done what they did with the poster. I don't know what they did, because I also have a problem with the title card. The title sequence, it's just the name in white, background of a city, and then below it now you start seeing the names of the actors and stuff in white. And I'm like, guys, you could have been creative with this. You have such a colorful poster. Why not translate that design you had on the poster into the opening credit of this film? So yeah, this movie has great actors. I'm talking about from the Indians to, in fact, I saw the Ravi guy. I saw Ravi during the premiere of the movie. And that person that I saw there, I was like, that person should have been the person in the movie, not this kid that you brought into the movie. That character that I saw during the premiere is the person that I would have really wanted to see in the movie, because he looked much cool. He looked like a person from the UK. Let me just call it that way. So yeah, Tosh Gitonga, from me personally, I thought this was a letdown from you. I'm blaming you. I'm not going to blame anybody else. I'm not going to blame the writers. It was poorly written, by the way. It's a good idea, but it's poorly put down. But I'm going to blame you because you're the director and you are a producer in this. You had a saying in this. You had the opportunity to just say, we are going to start with the character of, what's her name? Tracy, tied down, struggling to leave a particular place in some Indian outfits. So that now that immediately gets the audience hooked, like what's going on? Why is Mammito wearing Indian outfits? So that we get into the story. I wish if it was you, Tosh. In fact, I suspect it wasn't you, Tosh. I suspect you didn't do a lot in this. I don't know. It just feels off. The sequence of events don't feel natural. Yes, it's a comprehensive. It's comprehensible in terms of following all these events to the end. There's a clear start. There's a clear end. But the characters that we meet in the beginning is the same characters that we meet at the end. So there is no growth with all these characters. And coming from a seasoned director, I expected more from this. And most importantly, looking at what your peers are doing, this was not it. Yeah, this was not it. So, oh yes, 75 minutes. Why 75 minutes? Why not 90 minutes? I mean, this is supposed to be a movie. Why was it only 75 minutes? Because you needed the extra minutes to actually flesh out most of these characters. Flesh out Ravi, flesh out. And why is Mr. Carrier the way he is? I wish you have subverted that character, not just a terrible person. I wish you would have made him a much more sympathetic boss who is like, I don't want to fire you, but this has happened and we don't know exactly what happened, so I'm just going to give you a permanent leave as I think about firing you. I thought that would have made a more interesting bad guy, boss in quotes. Because, yeah, you know, we don't need to keep seeing people the same tropes in the stories that we tell. We don't have to have a villain be a certain way. We can always play around with the villain. We can always play around with their motivation and just try to be creative with how we portray some characters. Learn to subvert. And that's why I'm like, and I'll say this again. Yeah, I was kind of disappointed that this came out of Tosh. I expected better. Anyway, now this, for real, remember to always watch what you enjoy and enjoy what you watch. I shall see you on the next one. Adios.